Welcome to Female Fluence. We are a place of women empowering women. This is a safe environment where females are not judged nor afraid to flourish. My goal is to help you live an energized life of balance, whether as a mom, a wife, or in your profession. It is time to have self-worth and self-compassion. Live in the present moment and surround yourself with only healthy connections. So join me, Pearl Shua, a woman empowerment life coach, an educator, and a mother of three, to help take you on a journey of true identity and inspiration. Self-love is about cultivating a deep appreciation and respect for yourself. It means treating yourself with kindness and compassion, recognizing your worth, and prioritizing your physical and mental well-being. At its core, self-love is a practice of fully embracing who you are. Unlike being a narcissistic person, which is rooted in excessive self-absorption, and self-love is healthy and empowering on the opposite. Loving yourself involves understanding both your strengths and your weaknesses. It's a cornerstone of our overall well-being. Without it, motivation can waver, making it harder to pursue our goals and take new opportunities. Research supports this because self-love fosters resilience, helping us reframe challenges as temporary hurdles or even as opportunities for our growth. Yet, loving ourselves is often surprisingly difficult. Why is that? Many struggle with the belief that self-love is selfish, and it detracts from our ability to care for others. We convince ourselves that our focus should be on helping those around us only, but not ourselves. But here's the truth. Loving yourself is the foundation of loving others. For many, self-hate is a familiar habit, comfortable even. Choosing self-love, on the other hand, feels foreign and uncomfortable. But growth comes from discomfort. When we step out of our comfort zones and embrace self-love, we unlock the potential for transformation. To explore this further, I'm thrilled to welcome Jenna Banks to the show today. Jenna is an expert in self-love and personal empowerment, and I can't wait to dive into this incredible conversation with her. Jenna Banks is an entrepreneur, a keynote speaker, host of the Jenna Banks Show. She's a self-love advocate and a best-selling author of her book, Love Me More, which I have right here. She's passionate about helping women embrace their values and power so they can lead with confidence. Her insights on self-love have been featured in Forbes, NBC, ABC, and CEOWorld Magazine. Welcome to Female Fluence, Jenna. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm excited to have this conversation with you, Pearl.
Of course. Interesting. I didn't even tell you this myself, but the reason I reached out to you is that a few years ago, when I was going through my own transitions of what do I want to do with my life, my kids have gotten older, and I just felt very confused about the path that I wanted to take into the future. I remember being at the airport and my family was rushing through, and they were pulling their luggage, and I saw your book. It was in the airport bookstore, and I stopped. Like, I literally, like, my whole family went ahead, and I stopped, and then the title of the book just called my name. It was like a message, because I read it and I said, wow, like, this is the problem. Like, I don't even know how to love myself. This is why I feel so depleted and tired. I have forgotten who I am in the process of being a wife and raising three kids. If I try to love myself, then I'm going to be thought of as a selfish mom, if whatnot. So I just it stopped me in my tracks. And I remember looking at the book, and I read the back, and I was like, I have to get this book. And the crazy thing about it was, I'm like, imagine, because I, wanted to do the podcast, but I hadn't started, but it was like a dream. And I go, imagine if one day I have a show and I can ask this author to come on my show and empower other women. This is a complete true story.
Wow. Oh
So
my God.
I'm telling you, like, talk about manifesting something that you like. So when I reached out to you and you said yes, I was like, this is incredible. How when you really like manifest your dreams and you really work hard at it and you just go with the flow, how things happen. Like I remember that day at the airport so vividly.
God.
Isn't
That
that
is
crazy?
like so surreal. Like I'm feeling surreal reliving that with you right now. Like I would feel the same way. Like, oh my God, what a moment this is. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I had no idea.
Of
And
course, and I didn't want to tell you ahead, like in my email. I was like, this is going to be a nice surprise, like, get it on air live because it was just so special. And and I just wanted just the listeners to know that realistically, you have to kind of follow your dreams and believe in what you want to do and follow your path because this was so important to me. And I kept saying, I want to kind of make an impact on the world, and I feel like I need to help women realize this message because this is a huge message that we
yeah,
all through generations we've been told kind of like sit back, just take care of the family, take care of everyone else, you come last, and if you do otherwise then oh you're a horrible mom or you're not a good wife, you're not a
mhm.
good person, or if you try to do it in the work world, oh she's a bitch, nobody talked to her, she's so it's like it's regarded so differently. And I felt like this is such an important message. So thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure, and thank you for sharing. I have to say before we get into self-love, inspiration that you got at the airport, that intuitive hit of like, I want to do that. This, I feel like that's so important. I really try to follow that as soon as I get it now. I call that being in the flow,
Yes,
because that is your path, that is your direction, that is part of tuning into your intuition, which really knows what's best for you. And it's constantly sending us signals like that. And when you can learn to tune into it faster, sooner rather than later, that leads you on the right path. So
it
I'm
is
so
so
glad you
true.
followed it.
And I feel like the more that I'm following it, the more better I am at getting. Like I understand. I'm like, no, 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 I have to go to this meeting. I have to do this. Like it's just calling out to me. It's something versus the reverse to like, this is not for me. I have a bad feeling about it, so I'm going to
Yeah.
step out. So really
Yeah.
listening and being in tune with yourself, I completely agree.
Yeah, I go into a
So,
whole section about that in the book about trusting your intuition because I feel
yes.
like it's such an important part of self-love. That is that self-trust,
Yeah.
and tuning into your intuition is a huge part of that. I truly believe that.
I totally agree with you. Well, I mean, we've talked a little bit about it. Here we have society often labeling women, as we said earlier, if we prioritize our happiness and make decisions that honor our needs, then we're regarded as selfish. How do you respond to someone who believes in this myth? Because at the same time, I feel like society accepts men if they're being selfish. Like if you have a father that is, I don't know, not spending enough time with the children or working too hard or has to go to the gym after work, it's completely accepted, right? Like no one says anything, no one's going to say oh he's a horrible dad. But if the roles are reversed, if a woman is doing that, then it's immediately regarded oh like doesn't she have children, doesn't she care? So
Well, okay, so I'd love to address that because I think that's a really important question, and I'm glad you brought it up. A lot of it's in our head, right? Like we are worried about what other people will think about
yes.
us. But the truth of the matter is, if you decide, you know what, I need to go take some me time, and my husband or partner can take care of the kids, and I'm going to go do a spa evening because I need it. I need it to recharge. I call it my power container. And if you feel guilty about it, that energy is going to be what you carry forward with it. You're going to feel guilty, and then your husband might say something, and then you're going to take that and, acquiesce to this feeling of, oh, I shouldn't have done that. It's selfish of me. But if you feel like it's really something that you need to do for you and you stand in that energy, and you feel great about it. Instead of coming home feeling guilty, you come home feeling good. You absorbed it all. You threw away that feeling of guilt, which I'll get to in a second about what guilt really is, by the way, which I think is going to be a huge eye opener for your audience. But you throw that away and you say, no, I need this. And you really just accept your love, your care and attention, and you come home feeling rejuvenated and relaxed. Guess what kind of energy you're going to get back? Your kids are going to be like, hey, mom, great to see you. And you're like, hey, honey, and you're going to come in with such great energy. And same thing with your partner. The energy that you come in with is the energy you're going to get back. So when it comes to guilt, I had a huge aha moment about guilt. And I write about this in the book. A psychologist friend of mine said that just because you feel feelings of guilt, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. In fact, most of the time, it means you are breaking a normal pattern of behavior.
Wow.
So guilt serves to keep us in the status quo. Women, there are countless studies that indicate women have way more feelings of guilt than men. And when men do have it, it's usually because they ate too much or drank too much.
Yes. So why would you say that is? Because I don't think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but even like with my own husband, like if I'm like, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I haven't had a moment to hang out with the kids, or I feel bad that we have to go. And he's like, it's not a big deal. Like, we'll hang out with
Right.
them tomorrow. Like, why are you
Yeah.
stressing?
Yeah.
But it doesn't even phase them, right? But
Yeah.
why? I mean, how is it? Is it just the way I don't know, their DNA, their brain works? It's just,
I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I would venture to guess it's something to do with either DNA or genes or coding, but we are definitely coded differently as women.
for sure.
Just because, our roles have changed recently, right? In our very, very recent history, the roles that we've taken on as parents, as caregivers, as business leaders, partner, all of that, and our roles in society has changed. Our feelings have not evolved at the same pace. And there's a lot of research on this, and it shows that it's going to take us centuries to catch up. So that coding, whatever that coding has not caught up to where women are today. So it's really important to be conscious of these things. And that's why I write about them in my book, to bring awareness to it so that we can not let our feelings pull us this way and that, and really dictate our life path, that we can say, oh, okay, all right, I know I've read about this. I've heard about this from usually when you read something once or hear something
It
once, you
sticks
hear
with
it
you, and
again.
then you become more aware.
And then you get more aware, and then someone else says it, and you go, oh, okay. And then pretty soon that becomes more basic knowledge for you. And then when that feeling of guilt arises, you can go, okay, I know what that is, and push it aside. But it takes a lot of practice. And that's why I say self-love is a journey, because it is not something you can learn once and be done. It is a constant practice every day for years and years and years. Even today, I still feel that boundaries can be a challenge for me. Now I've gotten really good at them, but it's not an instant thing often. I have to sit back and tune into how I'm feeling. And am I feeling uncomfortable right now? Okay, yes, I am. Why am I being nice to this person when I really feel like running away? Like,
Right.
honor yourself, Jenna, like, honor yourself here. So sometimes I have to process it mentally, but because I've had the knowledge, the training, the input, I can work through it, but it takes a lot of practice. So that's why I
So did
wanted to
you
bring guilt up.
always have this strong sense of self-love, or was it something you grew into? Like what is the journey that brought you to this point?
Ooh, is that a loaded question?
Maybe like a little summary.
Okay, I'll do my hopefully 60-second summary. So I was raised poor, very strict religious home. I was taught that self-sacrifice is a virtue. There were no personal boundaries. We were not raised with any of that. Very authoritarian, very strict. And I ended up leaving home at 14. So I had to be very courageous at that point, because I was under a lot of oppression, and it takes a lot for someone to leave home at 14.
Yes,
So,
for sure.
so that was my first test of courage. And then, I went through a lot, man. I dropped out of high school at 17 and got my GED, got pregnant and married at 19, became a divorced single mom at 22. And then, began my career as a single mom, and had a lot to, overcome. But I had already come so much by that point.
Right.
But thankfully, once I stabilized and had a very stable career and started working my way through corporate, I ended up in so many situations beyond just the time that I was 14, where it started, where I would choose myself, put my needs first, make my happiness my highest priority. It would always pay off in spades. And that would lead me to, when I wasn't feeling valued at a job, to say, you know what, like, I need to get paid more, or I'm going to find another job. And like, choosing to put your needs first and value yourself more has always paid off for me. And each and every reinforcement just led to my empowerment. And over time, it got me to where I am today, which is, really successful entrepreneur. I have a best-selling book. I speak all over the country. I facilitate and moderate C-suite events for some of the largest companies in the country with, CIOs, CTOs, like everyone in the C-suite, CFOs. Little old me who got a GED and dropped out
That
of
is
high school.
incredible. What an inspiring story. Leaving home at 14, going through all of this, and being able to share your story. And I mean, she goes into detail in her book about her life, which I just felt so inspired and empowered after reading it.
Great. Again, thank you so much. Thank you. And that was the goal. And it's, I get vulnerable in the book, like I do in some of my speaking engagements. I just had one today. I tell, some of those deep, dark stories that people want to hide away from. But I think that it's really important to share those vulnerable stories and be vulnerable. First off, because you love yourself more, right? And you accept all parts of you, the good, bad, and the ugly,
Yes.
which I feel like empowers you even more. But most importantly is by sharing our stories publicly in a situation like this, other people can relate to you, right? Because they say, oh, okay, well, she can get through that. I can get through that. Just because you see me here doesn't mean I didn't go through all
Yeah.
this other stuff. So I have to share that with you so you understand that this is accessible to anybody, because I was raised not to love myself. I was raised to give all my power away to everyone else, especially people in authority. And instead, when I chose to love myself more and make myself and my needs my highest priority, I found that it's actually the opposite. That is how you attract abundance and success
Yes.
and help people value you and respect you and love you, because it all starts with how you treat you and how important you are to yourself.
It is so true. That goes to my next question actually, because one of the things is we are conditioned as women to love other people, right? But not really love ourselves. And I remember reading somewhere saying you need to like have conversations with yourself, like your own best friend. And I started doing that. Like it could be anything from I went and worked out and I was really tired, but I kind of pat myself and say, you know what, good job, Pearl. Like you were exhausted, but you made it. You made it to your class, you worked out, or you have a horrible day, but somehow you succumbed it and survived. And you overcome the challenges and you did a good job and you didn't react. Instead, you responded and you were calm. And I'm like, okay, good. Like just like I would to a friend, to another person, I feel like
Yes,
having that kind of relationship is so important. That relationship we have is more like, oh my God, you did horrible. Like it's that
exactly.
self-critical talk instead of like, you're doing amazing. You're a champion, your inner champion, you're going, go get them. It's always like, oh my God, I was horrible. I forgot to do this. That's the kind of conversation we're having instead.
I am so glad you brought that up, because you're absolutely right. Most of us have embraced our inner critic instead of our inner cheerleader. And it feels really good when we pat ourselves on the back, like you just mentioned. It feels great. And that's how you know you're doing something good for you, is if it feels good, not bad. But we've been brought up to believe that being hard on ourselves is the way to keep ourselves in line and stay motivated. But it's actually the opposite. We become our own worst critics, our own worst judges, and our own worst managers, and that doesn't help at all. Actually, it just drags
Take
us
away your
down.
energy. I feel
Hmm.
like.
Yeah, I have a whole, yeah, I write about that as well. Like just celebrate your wins. And then that's another muscle that needs to be practiced, is patting yourself on the back for little things, just the little things. Like, hey, you know what? You went to the gym when you said you were going to this week, you did it. Good job. And literally like just take that moment to do that. You can do it physically, which I do often. Or just say to yourself or out loud, good job. Give yourself that recognition. It starts to build that muscle, and then more of that starts to come out. And when you feel good doing that for yourself, less and less the inner critic comes out, because it feels bad. It
Yeah.
feels bad to beat up on yourself, and you start navigating towards what feels good. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that our upbringing and our social conditioning shapes how we love ourselves, how we regard ourselves? I'm sure you can talk about that, especially with everything you went through in your childhood.
100% it's social conditioning. Most psychologists agree that we form around 95% of our beliefs and behaviors by the age of 7.
And then, yeah.
7. And so that's basically our operating system for life by the age of 7. And where do we learn these beliefs and behaviors? Well, our parents, our family members, peers, teachers, schools, religions, cultures, etc. And then they become subconscious program that just run in the background of our subconscious mind. And what do we learn? We learn, what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong. In my case, what's evil. It was not just bad, but there was a lot that was evil.
Yeah.
And then we don't question these things, once we get older, we just take them as facts. But beliefs aren't facts, right? And so we can change those beliefs and behaviors anytime we want. But the thing is that social conditioning is what programs us, and we aren't aware of it. It becomes unconscious, and then it runs our lives. So we think, okay, well, girls should behave this way, right? Yeah, like you were talking about earlier about doing for everyone else, and that it would be selfish, and to prioritize your needs and to love yourself more. That's programming. Why? Because we watched our mothers do it, our grandmothers do it, and that's what you do when you're a woman. But men, do the opposite, and that's okay because they were raised to be a man, to be a man. What is a man? It's like you can be ambitious, compete to get ahead, dominate, take up space, share your accomplishments. If women did that, you are perceived totally differently, right? And so we go into these roles of this is man, this is woman, this is what girl does, this is what boy does. If a boy cries, he's called a girl,
Yes.
acting like a girl. That's social conditioning. That's society teaching them how to behave and
Yeah.
forces you into these roles. But we don't become aware of it as adults because it was conditioned into us as children. So that's where as adults we have to work to deprogram
Yes. The
some of that
computer
stuff.
needs to be deprogrammed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty much, right?
Yeah.
That's very true. Now, what are 7 ways that can prevent us from practicing self-love? I know you had that in your book. You can mention
Saboteurs.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk about some of just 7 of the saboteurs I mentioned, but there are more. Those were the ones I uncovered through my life and when writing the book. But I'll name a few that come top of mind. So one of them is the unconscious social conditioning. So I go into detail about that, like I touched on now, about how that social conditioning starts young, and what that looks like. Another one is the guilt, which I
Yes.
mentioned. That can definitely prevent us from loving ourselves more, right? Like, let's say you start to prioritize your needs and you take those first steps, guilt will kick in.
Mhm.
It's going to, because now we know that it usually occurs when you break a normal pattern of a behavior.
Right.
So, so that's a saboteur of self-love because you start to take the first step, then guilt kicks in and you're like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. So you got to watch out for that. So that's another big one. Never saying no when that's what you really feel like saying. Right? It's great to do for everyone else. It's really good to give. Like it's huge. It's a big thing. I'm a firm believer in that. But when you feel like saying no, that's honoring yourself, right? And so what can sabotage it is just that programming. Like I have to give, give, give. If
Yes.
someone wants, I need to give. My employer, my children, my partner, my friends, my family. It's great to give, but you got to give to yourself first, meaning like if you don't feel like doing it, honor that. You have to be the most important person in your life. Yeah, so those are just a few of them. Like I get into some more, but those are a few of the key
Key
ones
one.
that, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that we speaking of giving, another question I had for you is many people see giving like their time, their gifts, their money as a reflection of kindness and generosity.
Mm.
I mean, I have done that. I've tried to stop it. Just giving away time. Sure, I'll take care of that. Or I have friends that I see them constantly giving away. They don't have time to go to the gym or do anything for themselves, but they're
Mm.
helping everyone else. How can someone recognize when they're giving too much, they're overgiving to a point of sacrificing their well-being? And then if we stop, we feel really, again, it takes us back to guilt. We feel guilty because, well, I've always hosted this event. I can't say no now. I've always done everything for the PTF, or you know what I mean? It just goes on and on.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. How to recognize it? Again, I tune into feeling, right? If you feel great and you've got the capacity, you've got the energy, you've got the resources, fantastic. But if it's taking away from you, again, you have to be your highest priority. So let's say you're giving, to your kids like too much. Some people feel like they have to keep up with the Joneses and send their kids to these elite colleges and stuff. And if they're taken away from their future, their
Yeah.
retirement
Yes. I
to
was reading
do,
an article about that recently that a lot of people, I mean, not to interrupt you, but they are really sacrificing their retirement because they're so stressed out about this college situation, sending their kids to all these expensive, well, events before college. And then once they go to college, that's like another whole thing.
yeah. Yeah, so that is, I call that overgiving. That's not looking out for your financial future. And your kids aren't going to love that because I know way too many people who are having to take care of their parents financially and otherwise because the parents gave too much when they were younger. When your kids are, when they're college age, they've got their whole lives ahead of them to earn money and there are other alternatives. And if you can't afford who sent them to that fancy college, don't do it. You know what I mean? Like at the end, look, I'm living proof you can do great for yourself regardless of your education. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't get the education, you should absolutely get the education, but you don't have to have the fancy college
Right.
to get a really great economics degree.
You see people who even go to the fancy college, but there's no guarantee that they will be successful or they will do anything. They'll have the degree, and at the end, they might just be living at home until, they're 45. So,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
but you can overgive all kinds of things. Like you mentioned, it's not just money, it's your talents, your gifts, your time, your energy. And I have another chapter on this called Taking Control of Your Time and Attention, your time and energy, because they're valuable currency. So that is another way of just saying, you know what, am I letting everyone else be in control of my time and attention? Or am I being conscious of where I'm spending it and treating it like valuable currency? Because that same time and attention could be poured into a hobby that you love. That same time and attention can be poured into personal growth and development, getting a business coach or a personal coach to help you live your best life, right? Or let's talk about little things like worrying too much about how the kids put the groceries away. I was talking to someone who had a big epiphany about that, where she was trying to like micromanage every little thing, right? Like, oh my gosh, they're not putting the groceries away right. You don't know how to put the food in the pantry. I'll do it. And it's like, is that really good use of your time and attention? Or can you just go, you know what? Another thing I like a lot is the 80% is good enough rule.
Yeah.
Like it's 80% is good enough. We do not need to be perfectionists. Perfectionism is a limiting belief.
Yes.
It's a belief that it's a fear of not being perfect enough. It's a fear that we're not acceptable if we don't do everything just right. And that's a very fear-based way of living. And it also creates a lot of insecurity. So when we can let go and say, you know what? I have to tell you, I sent out an email. I have a weekly email series called Love Notes to Myself, and it's just free weekly self-love reminders. I sent it out. I used the wrong mail merge prompt for first name. So it's an F name, as the little insert thing. And it was supposed to automatically populate the first name of the person on the list. And
Right,
instead, it just came through as F name.
right.
And somebody replied back, hey, just wanted you to know, I think there was a little error, as if it was like, oh man, you weren't perfect. And you know what I said to myself? Oh, well, once in a blue moon, that might happen. Not my fault. I forgive myself. I'm
Yes.
not perfect.
And you can't even do anything about it, right? It's like, why worry about it? The
Right.
email's already gone. You can't do
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
I was like, haha, well, maybe people read it and it piqued their interest a little
There you
more
go.
because maybe it
It
was a
wasn't
good thing.
directed to them.
Right. Maybe no publicity, like bad publicity is good publicity. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
you know. So
so true.
anyway, so that's, a whole nother reframe as well. So those are just some of the ways that, knowing these other little things can help you kind of tune into, hey, am I giving too much? I need to be my highest priority. And it's that switch. It's a lot of little nuanced things that can help you get to a place where you can go, no, I am trying to prove myself and people please, and I don't need to do that to be good enough.
Very true. What do you think drives our external validation, like our need for it? Because that I think goes directly to that, where we need that, okay, well, I'm doing all of this and everyone's going to think I'm amazing. I'm, the great mom, I'm the great wife, I'm the great career woman, whatever you're doing. But why do you think we need that? Is it social media or and then we rely and that focus on that negative impact from someone. If we get that negative comment, then it just ruins our day, even though we might have like 100 positive.
You know why? I'll tell you why. This is my take on it. And I write about this in my book as well about the your love is your power. I truly believe that, and I know that we are conditioned as women to give our power away to everyone else. And when you give, it's your power, but when you give it away without any value, you are desperately seeking to get some of it back by the actions of other people. And so if they don't approve of something, you're not getting some of that power back that you need, to feel validated, feel worthy and valuable. But you've given them that power.
Yeah,
That's
that's
yours.
very true.
So if you, again, going with this theory I have of your love is your power, if you always keep your love, some of your love, burning within, always internal, you keep your power your own. It's very different. And when you have your own power, it's yours. You're not taking it from anyone. You just stop giving it away. Then you're not needing that external validation. If someone doesn't like what you did, if someone has a problem with your email going out without their first name in it and some merge tag in there instead, okay, how about you're not meant to be in my life anyway, then, if you're going to judge me like that, that's where you being grounded in your power comes in and you're resilient to criticism and judgment. You stop looking externally because you're validating yourself.
Yourself. Very true. I love that. That's a great way. I got like a visual of like like a superwoman with your power, and you just don't let anything get to you because you're not giving it all away.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you're this resilient person who isn't sensitive to others and doesn't love others.
Right.
It's not about that. It's about, man, you're charged up differently. You're confident. You're secure in yourself.
Confidence is the key. That's the thing. I feel like if you're confident, you feel good about you, then you don't need that constantly out there, someone saying you're doing a great job because you already know what you're doing and that's good enough for you.
And patting yourself on the back is a big part too, like you mentioned. If you make that your habit to do every little day, it's going to take a little programming.
Yeah.
Maybe make a sticky note and say, put it on your refrigerator and say, make sure you pat yourself on the back today.
So I follow Mel Robbins with the whole high five. Like I made a sticker now. Just it's on my makeup mirror so that in the morning it's like that's how I start my day. And it's like one time my husband's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm giving myself a high five." I'm starting my day and I feel good. And I really like these little tiny reminders, whatever it may be that you can do that's good for you. Like that works for me. So that might not work for you, but it's something like that just to start your day where you feel like, okay, like I got this. It's another day. I'm going to take it on. It's going to be great. I feel good. I'm grateful.
I love Mel Robbins. That high five habit was
Yes.
just genius. And, she has a lot of science-backed research in there as well about how it actually releases certain chemicals in your brain when you do that high five. It showed that doing that when football games and other games where they all high five each other, it actually releases chemicals in the brain and they do a better job.
Yes.
Like you actually show up better when you do that. So that's great. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Jenna, let's talk about parenting. When I remember when I read your section in your book, it was very powerful. And I have to say, I was very proud of you because I think it takes a lot to be a parent and see your child struggling, but having the power to kind of let go and say, "This is not my journey. I am doing the best I can. I can't abandon my own self to say that I'm the best parent in the world." So I just felt like because this affects us women like we talked about earlier where we're always as moms and parenting we feel the guilt and we feel like okay if we self-sacrifice and we abandon ourselves and we don't care about ourselves but we are the best parent then that's all we have to do.
Yep.
And you see it even like parents that are older. I mean, I know even my own mom today, she's a great mother and she loves to parent, but it's like her every day is she's always worried about what happened to the one of us, the kids, the grandkids. And it's like that can't be just our only journey. Just because
Mm-mm.
we're parents or we're moms for the rest of our life, at some point you have to let go. And if someone's not doing what they should be doing, it's their life,
That's
right?
right.
And
Yep.
that was very empowering when I read that section that you were able to do that. That must have been really hard. So if you can just, I guess, talk a little bit, reflect about your journey a little bit.
That was tough. My son went to a music festival. So I had gotten him off. I did my job as a mom. Like I got him off to a great start. He was in college, school, all ready to be paid for and everything. So, and he was doing great, studying film and television. He had a great job. He was filming live police chases and the wildfires that you and I were talking about earlier that are happening right now in California. He was filming all those from the helicopter, at like 19, he was making great money. I was like, I did it. I'm good. Like I did my job as a mom,
Right.
right? Very proud. And then he went to a music festival and did a bunch of hallucinogenic drugs, a whole cocktail mix of something, and was never the same again. His whole life spiraled. He lost his job, dropped out of college, stopped caring about his appearance and hygiene. I mean, it was bad. And so, of course, as a mom, you rush in and you do what you can to help. I was like, that was literally the single worst time of my life. Of everything that I ever dealt with, that was the hardest. My whole world was turned upside down. And man, that's when you go into full on guilt, self-sacrificing, all the things. I just wanted to fix him. And over time, we ended up getting diagnosed with Tourette syndrome with psychosis. And he was able to be stabilized with medication, but he never got back to how he was before. His life was completely changed. His whole future was going to be completely different. And I was just devastated for a long time and trying everything I could to try and fix him, sending him to this and that. And I'm talking whether it's regular doctors or Reiki or spiritual, like I was trying everything.
Everything.
But, at some point, your kids are going to live their lives. They make their choices. And, I, after going through a long time of just being devastated, self-sacrificing, depleting myself, my own resources, all the things to try and fix him, at the end, he was going to do what he was going to do.
Yeah.
And I realized, I had an epiphany. I realized that I had also wrapped up a huge part of my self-worth based on how my son turned out. And I had
We
to
all
do,
do that, right? It's one of those things as we all do when we want to say, "Oh, this is what my child is doing this," and
Mhm,
you think it's a reflection of what they're doing is on you, which is so true.
that's right.
Yeah.
It's right. Yeah, you take personal responsibility for how their life turns out. So I had to go, you know what, Jenna, this isn't working for you. I had a business running at the time, couldn't focus on it very well. It was just bad. So I had to go, you know what? It's time for me to just get back to self-love and start focusing on my needs. And then also he got on disability, got free healthcare from the state of California. He, ended up working part-time at a Lululemon store. He lives by the beach. He's got a fine life. It's fine. Like he's taken care of. I don't have to deplete myself to get him to live a lifestyle that I wanted him to live. His life is not my life. And
Exactly.
so I had to also, and of course, along with trying to get the kids to live the life that you want them to live, means that there's guilt that you put on them, the threats, money, tough love, all the things that you feel like you're still controlling a bit, right? And I had to just kind of let that go and go, you know what? I can't live his life for him. He makes choices that are not mine. We're on different life paths. Like I need to focus on what I was put on this planet to do and let him live his life. And so I found that this was a much better way of loving my son. I now I offer advice when he asks for it. And that's it. I don't impose my vision of his life on him. I just listen, try to give him the love and attention just by listening, asking questions, being supportive. There's only been one occasion recently where I had to step in and say, like, hey, can I give you some advice here? Because I think I really need to right now. This will be a big deal for you. And he listened and he was grateful for it. But Now we're at a much healthier place. And he's quite an adult now, by the
How
way.
old is
So
he?
he's 30.
Okay.
Yeah, he's 30. But, you know, his life will never be the same. And I've accepted where he's at. You know, I can say without feeling shame that, you know, hey, he's on disability, he's on government health care, and he's going to live a limited, you know, income life. He's fine. He's fine. He's okay with that. Like he doesn't expect anything different. He's made this choice. He, you know, is fine with that.
Right. And if he's
And
happy, if he's happy to living in that kind of lifestyle, then that's all you can ask for, right?
yeah, he's a great guy. We talk every day. He calls me all the time.
In this way, you were able to salvage your relationship with him.
That's right.
Right? Because if you had tried, how many stories you hear of the parent who tries and fights and says, that's it, I will disown you because you didn't do this, and they
Exactly.
haven't spoken for like 30 years, they have nothing to do with each other. So that's, you really saved your relationship with him. You
I
guys,
did.
right? That's the key.
That's the key. I saved it for, yeah, because I could have gotten to the point where I see a lot of parents do this, where like, if you don't do this, like you said, like we're not talking, or I'm not going to,
Yeah.
you know, and it just destroys the relationship. Again, it's because we have this vision for our kids that we want for them. And if they don't comply, then, you know, I mean, it's just, to me, that's just not the way parenting should be. But I feel like in this society, in this country,
It's
that's
very
the way.
hard. It's very hard right now, right? Especially right now. And I feel like, especially right now, especially with social media, especially just like with everything, it's really, really challenging that we have this image and there's already so much pressure on the kids and it just gets worse.
It does. It does. So we have a great relationship. He's happy in his life. He doesn't have a meddling mom. I'm just loving and supportive. And so I feel like this is just a much better way of loving him. So it was a great complete turnaround. And I didn't deplete myself. I have still, you know, we have a lot of work to do to get ourselves to be secure for retirement. And thankfully, I'm still on track, but I'm still working at that. But had I felt like I had to deplete my
Yeah,
resources for someone to try and live their life for them, that's not helping ourselves.
of
That is not
course.
being kind to
Yeah.
ourselves, and that's not helping them either at all. So, and you know, in the end, it worked. It's that's why I had to write about it and tell my story about that, because I
No,
feel like it was,
I was very proud of you because I felt like that was very, like, very, very a vulnerability that was shown to another level. And it was very powerful for me as a mom to read because I kept thinking, like, what would I have done in this situation? That's really hard to kind of have that attitude because I mean, I have three kids, from 13 to 19, and I'm very much involved in their life. But yes, as my oldest, who's in college now, it's already very hard to kind of let go and be like, okay, I can't control,
yeah.
and I don't know what time she's coming and going and what she's eating, and is she having her vitamins? Is she putting sunblock on? And and these are like
Yeah.
minor stuff, right? Minor.
Yeah.
But as they grow and they're doing more, and she wants to travel internationally and all these things that you're no longer part of that circle,
Yep.
that's already hard enough to kind of step back. So I can't even imagine in that way. So I'm really glad you wrote about that because again, one person that reads that book and is going through a similar situation, that will be very helpful and empowering for them.
I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot from women who are going through similar
Yeah.
situations with their kids. So I'm happy that I could provide that. It's tough to put yourself out there
Out
like
there.
that because, you know, I struggled internally, you know, while I was going through it, is like, well, what will people think of
Yeah, the
me?
judgment, right? And what
That's
the
right.
judgment? Yeah,
But I was like, nope, this is what I again, this is what feels good to me. This feels right to me to make this decision for myself.
right.
And I just followed that compass. And I'm glad that I broke that mold so I can share that story with others, because you will battle that, because that is how our societies kind of ran, is what will people think of me? You know, like there's so many cultures that's ingrained in them. Like I love
Yes.
90 Day Fiance. I love this show 90 Day Fiance, but I see
Yeah.
that all the time when someone marries someone, a man from India. Oh my goodness, it's all about what will society think of
Thank
me?
you. Yeah.
And they'll disown their kids over
Yes.
the fact that they won't convert to the religion, or, you know, do the things that women are supposed to do, or, you know, it's all about what will they think of me? I will be ostracized. I will be kicked out of my society. It's like, how do we live our lives like this? Like, it's no wonder why we are so fearful and insecure. And
Yeah.
powerless, really.
So worried about what people will think instead of just living our life to the way
Yeah.
that we want to live it.
Yeah,
Yeah, not
exactly.
caring. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
true. I mean, I can talk to you forever. It's like we're having this incredible, deep conversation, but I know I have to wrap it up. I have to say today, Jenna, you have shown me that when we accept ourselves, our authentic stories, free of shame, our lives become infinitely richer for sure. Happiness doesn't come from perfection, as we talked about. It comes from living with purpose, recognizing our self-worth and loving ourselves completely with our flaws and all. When you own your story, you commit to yourself on a deeper level. Jenna has shared her inspiring journey of self love with us, embodying her inner warrior goddess, as she calls it. So now I want my listeners, it's your turn. I want you to reflect and take action. Ask yourself these 3 questions. Who are the 3 people that you love the most? What relationship are you currently working hardest to straighten? And who is the highest priority in your life? If your answer to any of these questions didn't involve yourself, if you were not part of the answers at all, it's time to make a change. It's time to love yourself more. Your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you will ever have. It sets the tone for every aspect of your life, your physical and mental health, your job, your finances, and especially your relationships. Now is the time to embrace that inner warrior goddess and step into your full power. For guidance and inspiration, please check out Jenna's book. It's a powerful tool to help you begin truly loving yourself. Thank you, Jenna, for being on Female Fluence. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
Just learn to tune into your intuition when you feel like grabbing an umbrella to go outside, even though the weather says it might not rain. If you really feel in your gut to do it, grab it. Just start tuning into those little impulses,
Yeah.
like Pearl was talking about with her impulse with the book. You just start tuning into some of that, and you'll start to feel some of that power start coming into you, and you'll start to feel that amazing energy pulsating in your body. And that is going to be your indication that you are on the right path to loving yourself more.
Love it. Thank you so much. All the links will be in my show notes. Thank you, Jenna.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for tuning in today to Female Fluence. Together we can influence and motivate other mind-like females. Your job is to feel alive, be in control, and always be true to your own self. Please don't forget to subscribe so you can continue feeling inspired. All the links and notes from this episode will be posted on my website, femalefluence.com. Don't forget to also follow me at Female Fluence on both Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, if you are in need of a woman empowerment life coach to help you identify the barriers that keep you from living the life you seek, please send an email to info@femalefluence.org. Remember, my friends, don't just exist, but live your life to the fullest. I'm your host, Pearl Mashur. Until we talk next time.